Today we're going to take a look at a few different ways to adjust the lighting of a scene that's not quite right. In this case, we have a friend of mine from Puerto Rico who was filmed on a bright sunny day, and this is probably a camera that was set to auto exposure, so the background is perfectly exposed and he's a bit dark in the shadows. So let's take a look at a few different ways that we can rebalance this a bit so that he is more noticeable and the background is not quite the focus of the exposure. So we're going to start with some tools that are available in the free version of Resolve. And just to have this set up in the color page, I have my primary color wheels and I have a parade set up here in the scopes. Gives us all the information we need. So what I'm going to do is I know we need this overall image to be darker. So I'm going to take the lift and turn it down until it hits the bottom. And I'm going to take the gain here and kind of preemptively turn it down some. So that's lowering the bottom, the darker parts of the image and lowering the lighter parts of the image. Now I'm going to turn the gamma up. And what that's doing is taking the middle part of the image and bringing it up. Now you can see our subject's face doesn't have as much contrast from the light and dark. So we can hit the little number on the node here to turn it on and off, the before and after, before and after. Of course, this is reducing the contrast in the whole image. The whole thing looks kind of dull now. So I'm going to add another node so I can make changes on that node. That's Alt-S, I believe, to, I have it set up on a Stream Deck, but Alt-S to make a new node. And now I'm going to, let's try increasing the contrast a bit. Now we're undoing some of the work that we did. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to reset that grid. And now I'm going to try to bring some contrast back in by affecting the color. So we'll bring color boost up just a tad. We can really quickly make this look terrible. So we'll reset that, but just a little bit of color boost to bring in some sort of kind of color contrast in a way. Bring the sky back a little bit. Now let's turn that one on and off. The number doesn't look bad. We'll turn it all off. But this bypasses all the effects here. So there's before and after, before and after, before. That's one way of doing it. Moving pretty quick here. Let's go to the next one here, and we're going to try a power window on this one, which focuses the changes on the subject or on the background, one of the two. So we'll go to our power window here, add a power window by clicking on the circle. I'm going to use a circle at any rate. Put that on his face. Now this hard white line adjusts the overall shape of the mask. And the soft line here, the smaller one, it makes it kind of softer. So it fades the changes. We'll focus this a little bit more on the darkest part of his face, like that. Now, if I make any of these changes here, it's only going to affect, well, in this case, it's affecting the inside of the circle. That's not what we want. So we'll undo that. And here, we can invert the changes. So now it's only affecting the outside of the circle. And that is what we want. Undo that change, though, and create a new node. Then I'm going to take the alpha properties of the mask using this blue square and blue triangle. And now I've taken this mask information to this node. So I can make changes to this node, which I can then undo quickly without having to undo my mask. So here, let's go ahead and turn the background down. And if you turn it down too much, you can see that vignette coming in. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to reset that. You reset with this arrow here. Let's turn that down overall until I can just start to notice that vignette. And let's go ahead and add another node. And I'm not taking the mask material over this time. So we've darkened the background. Now we need to change the foreground so that there's a little less contrast between the bright parts and the dark parts. So let's see how we can do that. I think what we'll try first, this is overall a fairly dark image. In this node, since I'm not bringing the mask across, it's going to affect the whole thing. So let's bring the whole thing up again until our darks are no longer clipping off the bottom. You can see that here in the scope, you can also see that our highs aren't really clipping at the top a little, but not too much. So now he is a little bit too bright or a little bit too lacking in contrast. So let's go ahead and try turning the gain down and turning the lift down even more, and then turning the gamma up a little. I actually kind of like that. Let's go back. And there we go. There's no effects, and there is the changed effects. Now if we hit play, you can see that this is hitting the frame rate pretty quickly. That's one of the nice things about using these tools that are available in the free version. Next, we're going to get into the tools available in the studio version, and those are based on the AI engine, and that really uses a lot of resources. So the first thing we're going to try is magic mask. So we'll add a few nodes here, and we're going to go to our magic mask tools. And what this does is you pick the part of the image that you want. Oh, we have to put the preview on. Pick the part of the image that you want, and it'll say, okay, this is the thing that you want to focus on. And you can see that it has the red outline here is what it says, okay, this is what you want to focus on. You can see it's done a pretty good job, but it hasn't gotten the hair all that well, which is always an issue. One of the ways we can address that is changing it from the faster quality setting to the better quality setting. There we go. So now you can see the hair has a red outline. There really isn't any reason to use faster instead of better, other than that it uses a lot of resources. Now let's give it a try. Now that we have a mask on this frame, we need to track it both forwards and backwards from that frame, and that will take the mask and apply it to every different frame. This will take a minute. Okay, the magic mask has now separated the foreground from the background. We'll again take that mask and move it from one to the other. Then we go ahead and invert the magic mask again. So now we're affecting only the outer part of the image, the background in this case. We'll take the offset down to make the background darker. Now, is that really quickly? It looks unrealistic, but let's bring it down to so that not too bad there. But now, yeah, we'll leave it there. Now we'll go to the next node, which is affecting the whole image. I think what I'm going to do here on the whole image is just bring the gamma up. And that should start erasing the difference between the high end and the dark parts of our subject's face. But we're losing contrast in a way that's not exactly realistic. So I'm going to take the lows and bring them back down again. So let's click the number here to see before and after. I think that's fairly realistic looking. And another thing that we can do is try adding a little bit of color, just a tad, to the whole image. And what that does is it adds a little bit of color contrast, since we've taken away brightness contrast. It's a little hacky, but it actually doesn't look too bad. So let's turn all of our effects off here. Before, after, before, after. And if you hit play, it'll take a moment, but it gets up to full speed now that it's looking at it. There's a couple more things we can try. We'll go to the next one here, and this time we're going to try using depth map. So again, we'll give ourselves a few nodes since we know we're going to need one. Go into the effects and find depth map, drag it onto the first node. Depth map is going to look at the image and tell you what's close to the camera and what's farther away. It takes a while, but it does have some advantages. So I can see right away that I want to adjust this a little bit. So I'm going to bring the background a little bit closer, but what I want to be careful to make sure that I'm still getting the wispies in there, wispy hairs. As much as I can anyway. I don't mind too much if I lose some of them, but I also want to be careful of this. You see here the railing that's becoming part of the head for some reason. Might be about as good as we're going to get. So let's go ahead and give that a try. We're going to take the depth map preview off and invert it again, so we're now affecting everything except the subject. go ahead and take that mask to the next node. And here we're going to go ahead and use our primary color wheels offset to turn down the background. Not too shabby. Then again, we'll affect the whole image. No, not on that node. I'm going to go to the next node. We'll get to that in a second. So on this, affecting the whole image on this node, we are going to then again maybe bring up the gamma a little, maybe turn down the lows a little, just kind of relight it a little bit to make our subject a little bit more pleasing. There we go. That's not too terrible. Now, well, first of all, let's play this. And you can see, yeah, we're getting 6, 8 frames, 7 frames per second. Depth map is really putting a lot more strain on the processor. That's just the way it is with the AI tools. But if you look carefully here, you can still see, and there's a little bit of detail in here right close to the head where that's not awesome. Yeah, that's not awesome at all. Let's go back into our depth map then and see if we can adjust that. Effects, to reset everything and start over from scratch. That's fine. Bring that in. Let's go ahead and bring those wispies in all the way and see if that works any better. Oh yes, we need to invert it again. There we go. So now let's zoom in a little bit, and that looks significantly better. A little funk in there, but I don't think it's going to be noticeable. Look at it full screen. Yeah, not too bad. Now, not too bad for the moment. The reason why we skipped this node is I want to take the mask over again, and let's see if we can't blur that background. We'll add a lens blur, and again, this is going to affect the wispies, but I want to make sure that it doesn't affect it too much. You can see there's some funk along the edge here. We can get rid of that pretty quickly by taking the blur size down. So the mask creates an edge, and if the blur is too big, it's going to bleed over that edge no matter what you do. So we can take it down a little bit, and you can see if we turn it off, with the background is still being affected, it affects the wispy hairs a little bit, but not right close to the edge of the head, at least not as much. Zoom back out and have a look at that. That's kind of nice. Now, if we had used the magic mask, and let's say, let's add another node here. Make some space for that. And bring the mask over again and add lens blue to that. Readjust those settings as well. Now, if you look at the wispies, it's doing the same thing. So we have our blue at 2.71 on the magic mask and so 2.71, so they're about the same. Magic mask is actually doing a better job with the wispies, isn't it? That's not what I expected, but it's good to know. So those are a few options for how to fix a scene that isn't lit exactly the way you would like. This happens so frequently when you're outdoors. You don't have anything to create shade, and it's really bright in the background, especially if the camera is set to auto exposure. But there are things that can be done with it. Now, this is 10-bit footage shot on an FX30, so we have a bit more leeway than we would with 8-bit footage. But there are things you can do. You might be able to make it look perfect, but you can make it look better, and that's the whole point. Thanks for coming along. We'll see you next time.